Whenever you sit down for a meal, have you ever really thought about the incredible, complex journey that food took to get to you? Because behind that simple plate is an industry facing, well, a perfect storm. We're talking a shrinking workforce, huge safety risks. It's a lot. But there's a quiet revolution happening, and it's being driven by data, AI, and some seriously smart robots. This tech promises to make farming safer, way more efficient, and better for the planet. So let's dive in. Here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. First, we'll unpack the huge pressures on modern farming today. Then we'll see how data is basically giving farmers superpowers by making the invisible visible. After that, we'll meet the robots that are stepping in to help with the labor shortage and explore how all this tech is making one of the world's most dangerous jobs safer. We'll also ask the big question, does it all make financial sense? And finally, we'll connect the dots to see how this is all part of a global green revolution. All right, let's set the stage. When you think of farming, you might picture quiet, rolling hills and red barns. But the reality? It's an industry under some of the most intense pressure you can imagine, with some hidden dangers that impact every single one of us. Just look at this number for a second. 8 times. In a developed country like Japan, the fatal accident rate in farming is a staggering 8 times higher than the average for all other industries combined. That's not just a statistic. That's a full-blown safety crisis happening on the fields that grow our food. And if you think, well, farming's always been dangerous, take a look at this. Other tough industries, like construction, are actually getting safer. Their accident rates are going down. But agriculture, it's heading in the opposite direction. And this is all happening as the farming workforce is getting older and smaller. So you've got fewer people, who are often older, facing even greater risks. It's a recipe for disaster. So how do you possibly solve a crisis of labor and safety at the same time? Well, the answer might surprise you. The revolution doesn't start with the flashy robot. Nope. It starts with something much more basic: data. It's all about taking the guesswork out of farming by making all the invisible factors finally visible. Okay, let's get a little nerdy here. At its absolute core, growing stuff comes down to one simple chemical reaction: photosynthesis. It's the engine that builds about 90% of a plant. So the whole idea of smart agriculture is to use technology to create the absolute perfect 5-star resort environment for that one single process to happen as efficiently as possible. And this is how they do it: by constantly measuring things that we humans can't even sense. You and I can walk into a field and feel if it's hot or humid, sure, but we have no idea what the CO2 concentration is. By turning all these conditions into hard data points, farmers can suddenly see their world with a new kind of vision and control it with incredible precision. I love this analogy. Think about it like this. Following a standard farming guidebook is kind of like using a recipe you just found online. Yeah, it'll probably work, it'll be fine, but having real-time data from your own farm, that's like having your grandma's secret family recipe. The one that's been tweaked and perfected for generations to work perfectly with your specific oven, your specific ingredients. It's just on a whole other level. So, once you've laid that foundation of data, once you know exactly what's going on, now it's time to bring in the hardware. This is where smart robots enter the picture, and they're here to tackle that critical labor shortage we talked about head on. Ever wonder how a robot tractor drives itself through a field without a person behind the wheel? The magic behind it is a technology called SLAM. Just think of it like the robot is drawing a map of its surroundings as it moves, and at the exact same time, it's putting a little "You Are Here" pin on that map. It's what gives these machines their incredible autonomy. And get this, a robot's senses are often way better than ours. It uses a whole suite of tools. It's got an RGB camera, which sees the world just like we do. But then it has a thermal camera, which sees heat, so it can spot a person in pitch-black darkness, or even a blizzard. And then there's LiDAR, which uses lasers to build this super precise 3D math of everything. It's a complete, superhuman picture of the world around it. And this isn't science fiction, it's happening right now. We've got autonomous tractors that can plow a field 24/7 without ever taking a break. We've got drones with special cameras that act like crop doctors, spotting diseases from the sky long before a human ever could. And my personal favorite, these small, nimble little robots that can go down a row, identify a weed, and pluck it out with surgical precision without touching the crop next to it. It's amazing. Okay, so let's circle back to that safety crisis we started with.
Because the solution isn't just about yelling at people to be more careful. Smart agriculture flips the script. It uses a systematic, data-driven approach to completely redesign the work itself to be fundamentally safer from the ground up. Professional safety experts think about this in a 3-step pyramid. You never start by telling people what to do. Step 1, can you just get rid of the hazard completely? If not, okay, step 2, can you isolate people from it? Put up a guard, a barrier, something. And only then, as the very last resort, do you rely on rules and training. The key takeaway is that human behavior is the last line of defense, not the first. And a really practical way to do this is with a system called 5S, which was perfected in other industries. The idea is so simple, it's brilliant. A clean, organized, predictable workspace is a safe workspace. When every tool has its place and there's no clutter to trip over, you dramatically reduce the chance for mistakes and accidents. You're literally designing safety into the system. Okay, this tech is all incredible, but it leads us to the billion-dollar question that any farmer is going to ask. Does it actually pay off? Is all this sophisticated, expensive equipment actually going to make you money? Well, this case study is a real eye-opener. It shows that smart tech isn't some magic wand. Look here. After this farm invested in the technology, their profit actually plummeted. You'd think it was a disaster. But why? Because they bought all this expensive machinery and were only using it on a tiny piece of land. It's like buying a race car to drive to the grocery store. But now, look at that last column. If they used that same equipment to its full capacity, the profit would soar past where they even started. Scale is absolutely everything. This shows us that there's not just one path to success. The technology is actually creating 2 completely different business models. You've got the giant corporate farm that can go all in on full automation and treat farming like a massive manufacturing line. But what's really cool is that it also opens up a new playbook for the smaller family farm. They can make smart, targeted investments in things like auto steering for their existing tractor. And, crucially, they can team up with their neighbors to share the really expensive stuff. It's not just about buying tech. It's about fundamentally changing how you run your business. So let's zoom out one last time. This whole technological shift isn't just happening on a few farms here and there. It's actually part of a much bigger, coordinated global movement to create a more sustainable and efficient food system for everyone. All across the globe, governments are putting major policies in place that are basically pouring fuel on this fire. You've got the UN's goals, the EU's farm-to-fork strategy, Japan's green food system strategy. They're all pushing in the exact same direction. When a government says, we're going to cut chemical fertilizer use by 30%, they're creating a powerful incentive that makes smart farming not just a cool idea, but a straight-up necessity. And this isn't just talk. When a huge institution like the European Union puts out a statement like this, it's a massive signal. The phrase, financed through multiple financial frameworks, is just a fancy way of saying we're about to spend a whole lot of money on this. They see this transformation as absolutely critical for their economy, for food security, and for hitting their climate targets. They're funding the whole pipeline, from research to training, to make this the new normal. So, at the end of the day, we've seen how technology is providing some incredible answers to the question of how we can farm more safely, how we can be more efficient, how we can be more sustainable. The tools are here, and they're getting better every day. But that leaves us with a much bigger and maybe more important question. Now that we have these powerful new tools, what kind of food system do we actually want to build? That's the real conversation we all need to start having.